A tomato farmer goes missing, and the question still remains, who did this to Todd? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Todd McAfee. Viewer discretion is advised. This case occurred in the area of Myakka, Florida. 27-year-old Todd McAfee worked on a very large tomato farm. This is this massive 300-acre farm right off of State Route 70, just outside of Myakka City in Florida. The farm itself was actually owned by the Bonita Packing Company, and Todd had been working with this particular farm for about a year or so, and he was the manager of the farm. The 26-year-old man was described as just a really hard-working guy, a good guy, solid person, didn't really ever wrong anyone. He just lived a quiet, unassuming life. He was also someone who was a collector. He actually collected guns. He had a whole bunch. And he set up a target practice center just behind the farm, and he would be out there almost every day doing target practice. But in terms of farming, he was very, very skilled, and he had a ton of knowledge about farming, which could be a very lucrative thing for him. But unfortunately, about a year or so after he's working at this farm, someone takes his life. It was approximately 6:30 in the morning, and it's August 18th, 1987. That morning, like every morning, all of the farm workers would get to the front gate, and typically when they got there at 6:30, the gate was already opened because Todd is an early riser. He's a farmer, of course, so used to waking up early, he would always open the gates to let people in, and they would just go about their business on the farm. Well, something unusual about this particular morning was that gate was closed. It was locked. The farmers, the workers, had no way of getting inside, so they all thought that was very strange. This is obviously before cell phones. You couldn't just text or email someone. So they actually sat around and they waited for Todd's assistant to get to the farm. He says also, well, this is very weird. I haven't heard from Todd. I don't know why the gate is closed, but he has a key, and so he opens up the lock, opens the gate, and lets everyone in. As he begins to approach the actual farm property itself, he sees Todd's pickup truck parked in its normal spot. So he's like, okay, so Todd is here, right? He has to be. His truck is here. But why wasn't Todd there in the morning to open up the gate? As he looked into the pickup truck, he actually saw a bag of groceries sitting on the passenger seat. There was, I guess he had gone to a video rental place, like a Blockbuster or something, I'm not sure, but he had rented a videotape, and they can see that videotape also sitting on the seat of the truck. The keys to his truck were actually already in the ignition. But most alarmingly, when they looked inside, they saw Todd's glasses, and his glasses had blood on them. And immediately he's like, the assistant manager there is like, all right, something is obviously very wrong here. So he goes inside the house, but he cannot find Todd anywhere. He calls out for him. He searches. He's not there. He sees that inside the house, there are two opened cases for the gun cases, and they were missing their guns. They were just on the floor. He also noticed that the answering machine, the little door for the tape to go in there, was propped up, and the tape was taken out. Now, my assumption with that, because of what happens, a little bit later, is that whoever may have broken into the house and done what they did, perhaps that person also called Todd, maybe left a message, and maybe that person didn't want their voice to be heard or their name to be known because police would know that they were on their way, but I'm not sure. It's just speculation as to why the answering machine tape was taken out, because they didn't find it anywhere in the house or in the truck or anywhere. So they contact police because this is strange. There's a bloody eyeglasses in the truck. The keys are in the ignition. There are stolen guns that they could see, missing from the house. Todd is nowhere. This is odd. This is concerning. So police arrive, and they also look inside Todd's truck, and they actually find another empty gun case. Like I said earlier, Todd collected a lot of guns. And clearly they could see at least, at this point, 2-3 guns are now missing. Well, that same morning/afternoon, several laborers were, they arrived at a farm about 2 miles away. And in a drainage ditch, they found the body of a man. This man was very clearly dead. And it looked like he had suffered from multiple gunshot wounds. So police are called to that crime scene. They do confirm they have a deceased body there, later to be determined to have been shot by a .22 caliber, and they would soon identify the man as Todd McAfee. There were, according to police, there were spatters, blood spatters around the body. And what that actually told police was not that he was shot there. It's that because they saw indentations in the dirt, possibly drag marks. It looked like maybe they unloaded his body from wherever they had moved him with and dumped him into the ditch, which then caused the blood to spray from, his gunshot wounds. Something notable about this particular ditch where the body was found was that there was a known alligator who was always in that area, this like 15, 20 foot long alligator. And I think what they thought is that they probably did that thinking the alligator would get to him, but thankfully they did not. There were shoe impressions found in the sand, and once police had those, they would compare the shoe impressions to every single person who worked on that farm, to the people who had been at that field that day where the body was found, all of his friends, acquaintances. They checked their shoes for the impressions, and not one of them matched. When police entered the home of Todd, his trailer, they found that there were several handguns, there was a couple shotguns, and a few rifles that were missing from Todd's collection to go along with several other handguns that they found the cases for. They found blood spatter in Todd's truck, indicating he may have actually been shot in the truck or as he was getting out of it, which would be explained by the fact that the keys were in the ignition, the groceries were on the seat, the videotape was there. It looked like he was accosted as he was getting out. They think he might have actually pulled up to the trailer and maybe caught or saw whoever was robbing his house, and so they killed him out of that. So based on receipts that they found in Todd's truck and by witnesses, they could state for sure that he was probably killed sometime between 6:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. on the August 17th evening. A couple of friends of Todd's had at one point driven past the farm that night, and they actually saw an orange van parked out front. The orange van was parked, I guess, somewhere near where Todd's truck was later found. Well, then once they had that information, they would talk to people and they would get more statements from people who saw that same orange van at a gas station just down the road. There was a woman inside the van that one of the witnesses had struck up a brief conversation with, and then there was a man who came out of the gas station, approached the woman in the van, and actually smacked her once or twice. And then he got into the van himself. Then a second man, third total person, gets into the van, and then the van takes off. So the images that you're seeing now are the composite drawings made of that man and of the woman in the passenger seat of this van. They came up with these. They put these images all over the news to see if anyone might have recognized them. Does anyone know anything about this orange van? It might have stuck out because it's a bright orange van, but no one really came forward at that time. And just because the orange van was spotted at Todd's property by his friends, told police that the people they saw at the gas station were potentially his killers. They combed through all of his contacts, his friends, his family, the people he dealt with, the owners of the farm. They couldn't find anyone that would indicate that they wanted to kill Todd. He didn't really have any enemies. And so they think that this was just a robbery that went wrong. They do have tire tracks found at the crime scene, both at his property and I think near where the body was, but they have yet to really match those tire impressions or the shoe impressions to anyone. There really were no fingerprints that they had. There was no foreign DNA found, and so they are very limited on the evidence. There is at one point a $5,000 reward for any information that would help lead to capturing who did this. Police believe these two suspects were likely locals. They were someone who may not have known Todd directly, but at least knew of his property and the gun collection he had, because they really do think that the gun collection was actually their target. So he may have told someone who then told other people that he had this big gun collection, knowing that they can probably get a lot of money for him. They planned this robbery, weren't expecting him to be there. He then walked in on it, and he was killed. They think he was killed there on his property and then driven out to where his body was found, where they just dumped him. One of the witnesses at the gas station said they heard the man when he hit the woman in the van. This person says, quote, "What are you trying to do? Get us in trouble?" Because the woman was talking to this witness. Definitely sounds very suspicious. The van is described as a mid to late 1970s model with a tinted porthole near the rear. It had no other side windows. An automatic weapon was seen in the vehicle. One man was called Rob by the other man, described as being 5'8" and 180 pounds with a light growth of beard and curly sandy brown hair. He appeared to be in his early to mid 30s. He had a large tattoo of an eagle on his left arm. The second man, they believe might have been referred to the name Runt, was about 6 foot to 6'2", had a mustache, very thin build, and straight brown shoulder length hair. The woman was described as 5'5" or 5'6" with a very thin build. She was in her mid to late 20s and had a light complexion and light brown or blonde shoulder length hair. She appeared to be under the influence of drugs and was wearing a gold necklace with the letters R and B. A small diamond was in the leg of the R. Fast forwarding to July of 1989, a man was apprehended because he had a .30 caliber Plainfield semi-automatic rifle in his possession, which police would learn belonged to the collection that Todd McAfee had. The man told police that a man named Wilbur M. Anderson had sold him that gun. He claimed that Wilbur also sold a 12-gauge shotgun, which Todd's collection was missing a 12-gauge shotgun. Once police got the shotgun from this man, that gun along with the other gun they found in his possession were both confirmed to have come from Todd's collection. So who is this Wilbur person and how did he get access to these guns? Well, Wilbur had apparently used to work on the same farm as Todd. Todd was Wilbur's manager. Wilbur knew that Todd owned this large collection. So initially they thought that this was probably a robbery gone wrong, that no one really knew, that these people didn't know Todd, but now they believe that the person did in fact know Todd and knew what he had. So Wilbur was arrested and he was charged with connections to the stolen guns. And he was later convicted of selling stolen property. But they had no proof that he was connected directly to Todd's murder. They did not have the physical evidence. They had the stolen guns, but they had to prove that that same person also committed the murders, which they were not able to prove. And it's better to not arrest and charge someone and go to trial and risk losing that trial because you don't have the evidence, because once you lose it and they're acquitted, you cannot try them again. In 1991, a man named Jacob would tell police that he had a cellmate in a jail, that cellmate had information about Todd's murder. This cellmate mentioned the name Ruthie Mae Anderson. Ruthie Mae Anderson just so happened to be the girlfriend or the wife of Wilbur. She was also going on trial for selling stolen property. They found out that Ruthie actually used to be Todd's housekeeper, and so she had direct access to Todd's house, not at the time of the murder, but previously. And so police believe that Ruthie organized the burglary of the guns. They also believe that not only were the guns the intended stolen property, but also cash that he had there in the house, but that cash was never stolen. So they think that it was Ruthie, along with Wilbur and this third unknown man, who went to the property that night with the intent of stealing the guns and potentially cash, but were stopped or interrupted by Todd. Investigators did discover that the orange van that was likely seen, well, they found it at a junkyard. Unfortunately, the van no longer yielded any evidence because it had been, it was at a junkyard. But I believe they can confirm that Wilbur or Ruthie or one of the two of them or both of them owned an orange van at some point. So they arrested Ruthie, and they actually charged her with murder and conspiracy to commit murder, along with the charges of selling stolen property. However, the inmate who had told this story about Ruthie has now recanted his entire statement, saying he made it up. And because they did not have any physical evidence connecting any of these people directly to the physical murder itself, the robbery, yes. The murder, no. I know that sounds odd, but it is what it is, I guess. And so because of that, they had to drop all murder charges against Ruthie and was released. And it's believed that she is now in Mississippi. Wilbur has gotten out of prison, and it's believed that he might be living in Alabama. And it's believed that this couple is the ones responsible for Todd's death. They just can't prove it. They need more. They need evidence. And I guess you can say it's kind of a good thing that they did not go on trial for the murder, just because if they had been acquitted with no evidence, they would never be able to be tried again. So The good news is that they can still be charged at any point. It doesn't matter if it's 10 years from now, if it's tomorrow, or if it's 30 years from now. They can be charged with it still and go to trial for it. Police just need the evidence. And they need people. They need people to come forward about what they might know. And they need to be able to corroborate what they know. Someone somewhere out there knows the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. If you have any information on the murder of Todd McAfee from Florida, please call 941-747-3011. If you have any information, please help Todd McAfee get the justice he very rightfully deserves. But that is it for this case. True crime, Aruni, Dooney, Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you are new here, hello, my name is Mike. I tell true crime stories here on YouTube, obviously. So please subscribe. Hit the bell so you're notified of when I post new videos. Please drop a like and a comment if you want. It helps more people see the video. I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok. The link to my TikTok is in the link tree, which is in the description of the video below. So feel free to follow that. If there's a case you want me to cover, you can send me an email. My email is listed below. My case list is also found in that link tree. You can actually see it and scroll through it. If you don't see a name on there that you want me to cover, just let me know by email and I can add that name to my list. I typically pick cases at random, so just be aware of that. But if you are a loved one of a murdered or missing family member or loved one, please just let me know that in the email and I can make sure that case becomes a higher priority. But that is it for this video, True Crime Aruni. So until the next case, ta-ta for now.